Hello and welcome to the first edition of Cheers to Careers. I am Steve Rottinghaus, the current outreach coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU. We are fortunate to have Haley Harrison, a 2006 KU graduate and KMBC anchor, to talk about her career track. Welcome, Haley.
Thank you, Steve. It is a special honor to be your very first guest.
Again, I appreciate you being here. We're just going to focus on kind of her career track and some advice to KU students. So Haley, I think you started your broadcasting career pretty early. I seem to recall a social media post where you're maybe in your backyard porch with a microphone in your hand. So how did this career happen?
Yeah, I had one of those little toy microphone speaker situations. Yeah, I got the bug really early, really young in life. And so, I was always a talkative kid. I was always asking questions. I was always, curious. And those are the sort of core journalistic, I think, abilities that we all have if you're interested in storytelling as a profession. I had gotten really interested in TV production. It was actually a high school, I think it was like a counselor in high school who said, hey, you need another elective this semester. I was an 8th grader going into my freshman year. And she said, I'm just going to list off what the possible electives are. And she starts going through them. And she lands on TV production. And I'm like, that is what I want to do. That sounds so cool. And I think I ended up doing TV production at Topeka West High School every single semester as an elective, TV1, TV2, and it was actually the same TV program that KU's Brian Haney came out of Topeka West High School. And we had the same teacher, Corey Wilson, who brought us under his wing and said, whatever you're interested in, you can do it. You can bring me an idea and we'll make it happen. And we started doing things like stop motion animation and linear editing. And I had gone to him and said, I want to be a TV news reporter when I grow up. What can I do? And we came up with this idea to basically do a news brief for our public access channel that the school had. And so it was Topeka West, and so it was called West Word. And Corey Wilson let me do that in high school. So coming out of high school, I had actually been working at KS&T in Topeka running teleprompter and cameras and audio for their morning show. And I had done an internship, kind of a loosely interned with some of the people and shadowed some of the reporters there. Knew that KU was going to be the school for me, and came here laser focused on starting my journalism career. So I was not one of those kids who kind of tried out a bunch of stuff to figure out what I just knew. I just always kind of knew that this was the path for me.
So you mentioned Topeka West, so obviously Topeka's close to Lawrence. What were some of the primary factors to come to KU?
I think one of the reporters who I had shadowed at KS&T, I was asking her about J schools, and she said, well, KU's got a really good J school. I obviously knew about Mizzou. I could go to Mizzou 4 hours away. That's pretty close, but why not pay in-state tuition? Go to KU, it's 30 minutes away. I can still go home on the weekends and do my laundry or have my mom do my laundry for me. So there were a lot of considerations. My whole family had gone to K-State. My dad was really pushing, check out K-State. And I just really never considered it. They didn't have a J school, the William Allen White School of Journalism is pretty well known. So I was thrilled to be coming here.
So you're at KMBC now. What skills maybe that you gained at KU have you been able to apply to this day at KMBC?
There's, outside of journalism, obviously, and the way that they kind of prepared me to think of myself as a multimedia journalist. That's what, the terminology that we were really talking a lot about in 2006 coming out of school is you got to know how to shoot, you got to be able to edit your own stuff, you have to be prepared to be a reporter and an anchor and a producer. You really have to be able to do it all. So I came out of J school specifically, really multifaceted and ready to step into any role. And I did have to step into basically a lot of different roles, especially in my early jobs, like small market stations. I had a job where I was anchoring the 6 and 11. I was reporting at that same station. I was anchoring the 6 and the 11, which I was also producing. And when I would have to report, I'd go and I would MMJ those stories. So there were a lot of skills that I felt prepared to do coming out of school, right? But I think more broadly, the University of Kansas and just the university college experience helped me prepare to be be a better researcher, know how to find accurate, quality information. So I really came out of school much more well-rounded for those kinds of things. I mean, the research I bring up because I'm using that every day in my job still. And so I really honed that skill here.
And I believe your first job after graduation was here at Lawrence Station, Channel 6, and you moved to the East Coast, and then you came back to KMBC. Was that always kind of the plan, or what was kind of your plan once you graduated?
Yeah, no, it was not my, it was, but it wasn't my plan, right? When I was here at KU, I had a very clear idea of like, this is what my career is going to look like. I'm going to make this happen. And it's not to say that I couldn't have made those things happen. It's just that my wants in life changed. I had met a guy here at KU in the J School, and we ended up dating for a long time, and now we're married and we have 2 kids. But so he had taken a job out in DC. And I love DC. I kind of thought maybe that's where I want to be forever. And so I had done the job here in Lawrence at 6 News, which was a phenomenal experience. And I'm so lucky that I got that job because I was able to put together a more professional tape. And I had my own photographer, which is very rare in your first year out of school, right? So I got a better tape together than I had. And then I wanted to be closer to him in DC. So I got a job at WHSV, Channel 3, the ABC affiliate in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which I had never heard of before moving there. But it's basically between Roanoke and Washington, DC. And so it's about 2 hours outside DC. And so I thought, well, I'll go see him every weekend. I'll live here, I'll do this thing. You know, it's like market 170 something, 150 something, I don't know. But again, that was where I got the experience producing, anchoring, reporting, being my own photographer, doing everything. And I really came out of WHSV a much better reporter and anchor, especially. And just a better TV newsroom colleague, because even if I wasn't the best producer and I have no desire to produce, at least I know what my producers are looking for every day when they're putting together those newscasts. I mean, I can empathize with the things that make their life easier and try to do those for my producer because I've been there and I've done it. And so that experience made me so much better. So yeah, I ended up in DC. I was reporting and kind of anchoring at News Channel 8 there, which is WJLA, the ABC affiliate in DC's like 24-hour local news. And so that job was very hard. I was an MMJ in a big city, and it felt like my whole day was driving around in traffic and sitting in traffic and not doing the things that I really fully wanted to do. And so I was very frustrated at that time. And my dad back here in Topeka had come down with stage 4 esophageal cancer. And I just really felt my heart being pulled back home a lot. And my husband and I started talking about, we're going to start a family. And what does that look like living in Washington, D.C.? Can we afford to do that in Washington, D.C.? And just what I wanted in life really changed. And this job opened at KMBC 9 years ago now. And I said, I'm going to apply for it. I don't know that I'll take it, but I'm going to apply for it and just see what happens. And I did, and got offered the job and had come to visit and thought, this is it. This is it. I love this place. I love the station. I love the company. I love the people. And it was a great opportunity. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy that I'm in Kansas City right now, actually. I wouldn't have ever seen that for me, but it's a great place.
Speaking of this is it, I mean, among all your stops, here in Lawrence, out on the East Coast, and back here in Kansas City, was that one moment where you thought, this is what I was meant to do? Or are you still trying to get to that point in your career?
Like, is this journalism what I meant to do?
Yeah.
I think that I've kind of always known that about myself. I've always known it. Like I was telling you, I kind of caught the bug early on. And I think I still have days, right, when I'm driving into work and I am excited to be going into work. And I think that kind of tells me, like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Or you have those stories that you tell and you know that it makes a difference in somebody's life because they reach out and they tell you, or there's an impact. Those are days where you're like, wow, man, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm making a contribution. I'm making the world a better place. I have experiences that I get sometimes, get to go cover a story, or, I got to do a documentary recently and just loving every single second of it and telling myself, pinching myself and saying, I get to do this. I think if you're having that kind of feeling about your job and what you're doing, I think you're doing the right thing.
What are some of those high impact stories or the people you've talked to that have really resonated with you over the years? I imagine there's got to be a couple that really click in your mind.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of memorable experiences. I've got to do it all, from hurricanes and tornadoes to, one of my personal favorite experiences was that, I'd come out of KU with an interest in politics, and I had done, I think I did like a concentration in political science, and had done an internship in the Kansas legislature. I'd interned in Washington, D.C. with my congressperson. And so when I was living in D.C., got to cover 2 State of the Union addresses from inside the United States Capitol. After the speech is given, all the representatives and senators, they come out into Statuary Hall, where there's a lot of media, national media mostly, sitting ready to ask them questions. What did you think about the speech? Or get their reaction to any parts of the speech. And I got to do that for WJLA News Channel 8 on 2 different occasions. And just, gosh, for me, that was huge, right? To be like, wow, all these people who you know and recognize, and they're just waiting for you to ask them what they thought of this speech. That was a cool experience for me. And of course, just being inside the US Capitol doing your job is pretty great too. I've got to meet some people. Last year, I mentioned this documentary that I got to do, which was a really special experience for me, and still pretty rare in our industry that anybody would get the chance, while being a reporter doing day turn stories, to get an opportunity on the side to do a documentary. It was about the trailblazing women of Kansas. And it was about Susanna Medora Salter, the first woman mayor in America who's from the state of Kansas, and the many, many, many trailblazing women in politics who have followed her through the years. And so we started that project 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think this month. And it aired last August. And that was so much fun and just a great, wonderful, fulfilling experience. And so that one is extra special for me.
Because you got to spend some time with Nancy Landon-Cassavant too, right?
Nancy Landon-Cassavant, and again, I grew up in Kansas. She was my senator growing up, So talk about a pinch me moment. It wasn't about politics. It was just about this woman who I had grown up kind of admiring and recognizing and getting to sit with her. And there were so many women in that project that I got to know. And Nancy Landon-Cassavant wrote me a beautiful letter afterward, and to just get to develop those kinds of relationships and ask those people all the questions that I've always wanted to ask, right? So that's a great experience.
And I know in the past 15 years, the broadcasting profession has changed a lot. Technology has a lot to do with that, especially social media. It seems like you're always in contact with your audience. I know you've started a podcast, I believe, KMBC 9 Storytellers. How do you manage all the content that you're producing throughout a day?
I would tell you, I probably don't. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And I am by no means the picture of perfect content management. There are so many people in this industry who do it so much better than me. And I'm always thinking I got to get better at this, or I got to post on Twitter more regularly. I do my best. Each platform has its own audience. And I think it's important to know who you're reaching and what kinds of content will reach a certain audience on a certain platform. A story that does great on Facebook is going to get no traction on Twitter sometimes, or vice versa. And so you have to know how to present stories for each platform. And that's really important. I often will sit down on a Sunday and plot out a couple of posts for the week and schedule them, because we have that ability to, plan posts for later on in the week. And so I'll think, let's see, Wednesday's St. Patrick's Day, so I'm going to come up with a St. Patrick's Day post and then just schedule it so I don't have to think about it on Wednesday. That's a tactic that I've used a lot. But yeah, I think you ask me on one day and I will tell you that social media is garbage and I hate it. And I can't stand the people on social media sometimes. And I think you ask me on a different day and I think it's this magical, wonderful storytelling vehicle, and I'm so glad that we have it. So I think it just depends on the day and the story, but yeah, I'm always kind of wrestling with all that there is to do.
I worked at Lawrence Journal World for a while, 11 years, and we were involved in convergence with Channel 6. So I got to see Channel 6 and how they really get along, just kind of as a staff. It seems like at Channel 9 you really get along. I mean, how important is it to find that workplace where your staff, you kind of build each other up and that camaraderie? How powerful is that to have that positive relationship?
Yeah, when it works really well, it works really well. When you have people around you, and kind of our feeling and our atmosphere at Channel 9 is that we're a team. And we play like a team. There's always sort of a healthy competition that goes on between people in any newsroom, right? You're always kind of pushing each other to be better and to strive to get the big interviews or to do a better story or write something better. And that's a wonderful thing. I have people in my newsroom who I'll go to and I'll hand a script to them and be like, you just gotta tell me is it as bad as I think, So I think that there's a great relationship between my colleagues at Channel 9. I've worked in some newsrooms where that doesn't exist, right. And you get to know really quickly when that is in place somewhere and when it's not, and it makes all the difference, right? Just like for your mental health, going into work, knowing that your coworkers have your back and you have theirs. It makes all the difference. And so no place is perfect, right? There's going to be personalities in every newsroom that you go into that are going to be difficult, just like any industry. And I think you just have to work to be professional and deal with that. But I think overall, you can tell if you have a good team mentality because you can all rely on each other and you know that you have your backs and everybody wants what's best for the product.
And you mentioned earlier, married with 2 young children. How do you manage that work-life balance? I know when I talk to students, that's always kind of a concern. I mean, the demands of the job, but I mean, how do you manage that part of your life between work and family?
Yeah, Steve, I was reminded of this today actually because coming into the building here, we had, when I was sitting in Stauffer Flint, so yeah, many years ago now, and we had an alumna come speak to us, and she was saying, think about yourself 15 years from now, and where are you going to be? What's your life going to look like? Are you going to have a family? What are you going to want out of your career? And I was not ready to hear any of it, right? I was just not in a place. I thought, I'm never going to have kids. I'm going to be a network correspondent, and I'm never going to settle down anywhere. And that's just not me. I don't need to listen to any of this, right? And things quickly changed for me, and that's okay. That's okay. But I would say, if you're feeling that way, where you're like, I'm not going to worry about work-life balance questions now, then do yourself a favor, your future self a favor, and just give it some serious thought right now for where you are, because it does become more challenging, especially when you have kids, you have a significant other. Fortunately, I have a husband who is a journalist as well, and he understands the demands of the job. He understands that I'm going to have to work on Christmas sometimes, like I did this year. That's a huge thing, but I've seen in my industry a lot of marriages suffer, a lot of families suffer because people haven't considered, what does this look like for me? So yes, the work-life balance question is very important, especially in an industry that's as demanding as journalism is. And I'm glad that we as a society are talking more about work-life balance. And one thing I'm trying to do more of is to have those conversations with my male colleagues, because I know that a lot of them also are in families where they and their wives or their partners are trying to juggle that as a team more and have a more equitable distribution of the labor or the family obligations. And so, I actually had a male colleague say, he's never been asked No one's ever asked him, what does work-life balance look like, you know? And so I'm trying to be more thoughtful and ask that of my male colleagues, because I know the women in my newsroom and we talk about it all the time. Because it's really hard. And, but I know that it's hard for those guys, and the more that we're talking to the guys and the gals about it, the more normal it is for us all to be juggling stuff. So, you know, with that said, my general manager, Sarah Smith, and my news director, Dan O'Donnell, have both told me, don't try to be the perfect mom and the perfect employee every day. There are days when the job is going to win, and there are days when being a mom is going to win. And what I try to do is like have a balance of those things over time. You know, on the balance, over the course of months and weeks, have I found balance between my career and my personal life? You know, this week, my daughter's on spring break. I have the week off work. We're doing fun mom-daughter things. We're going to the toy store. We're going to the museum together. This week, being a mom wins, and that's fun, and that's great. There are other weeks where being a Haley Harrison TV news anchor reporter wins. And so my daughter understands that. My husband understands that, very fortunately for me. So I think that I have to have a bigger picture view of those things. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of always this internal struggle. Like, am I failing too much at one thing or the other? I'm always asking myself, like, okay, you know, am I managing it all? So it's a struggle. It's a very real struggle. And I think a lot of moms go through that, and a lot of dads go through that too in our business.
Yeah, great advice on the work-life balance. I totally get that. And I think it has gotten better. I hope it's gotten better in the last 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. Speaking of advice, what advice do you have for the class of even the 2020, 2021? Because obviously with the pandemic, it's been kind of a crazy year for our students looking for jobs. I mean, what advice do you have for the journalism students that are about to enter the workforce?
Yeah. I've been talking to some juniors and seniors lately, and I can hear the anxiety. And I would be anxious about it too, right? So, but I will tell you, take a deep breath. You will get a job. You'll get a job. It'll be okay, you know? I would say make sure you're marketing all of your talents. Don't be too laser focused on, I'm going to be an anchor, and that's what I'm going to market myself as. You got to market all of your storytelling abilities and be open-minded to how you can use your storytelling abilities, right? Be talking to people in the industry, be getting your foot in the door with people, be open to going anywhere to start. That was one thing that I kind of thought I didn't need to really consider that seriously. There was a career fair when I was coming out of school, and I remember I stayed in the Dole building for 2 days before this career fair, running off copies of my VHS tape, my reel, because I was going to give them to everybody. I was going to get a job. And I went over there, and Brian Bracco, formerly of KMBC, Channel 9, said, let's look at your tape. And he had a deck right there. We watched my tape, and he said, I'm going to get you a job in my company. And he handed me a list of TV stations, and he circled all of these small market stations. And he said, call any of the news directors here and tell them that I talked to you and we'll get you a job. And I naively looked at that list and thought, well, but yeah, I want to come work at KMBC. And KMBC is not one of the ones he circled, you know. I did not appreciate and realize at the time what a favor he was doing for me. I'm like, I don't want to go to Little Rock. Why do I want to, you know? You can do anything for one contract, you know? Just because you go to a tiny town and a small market station doesn't mean you're going to spend the rest of your life there. You may not even spend the next 5 years there. You may be there for 1 year, put together a better tape, and get out, right? So be very open to having an adventure and going somewhere where you don't know anybody to work. Use it to your advantage to just go put together a better tape to help your career along. So I would just say, be open-minded.
No, again, great insight. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your time at KU or about your career?
I just feel very fortunate to have had the experiences I did here at KU. I work with a lot of people from Mizzou who come out of the Mizzou J School, right? A lot of people at every station I've ever worked at. There's tons of Mizzou people all over the place. And yes, some of them are very talented. But I am very confident that your college experience is what you make of it. And you have all the resources here at the William Allen White School of Journalism and Mass Communications to do anything in this industry. I mean, there are people I graduated with who are, network producers and who are all over the country and doing all kinds of great things. So don't sell yourself short. Also, coming out of school as a student journalist, don't advertise yourself as a student journalist. I tell this to young people all the time. I see resumes and they say, I'm a student journalist. No, you're a journalist. You're here. You're doing journalism. It doesn't matter that it's in a college, experience. You are already doing the work, and so don't sell yourself short, and just have an open mind in this time coming into the business. You're a storyteller, and you happen to specialize in visual storytelling.
Yeah, well said, Haley. Again, we truly appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. First episode of Cheers to Careers, and we hope to make this a weekly event. And again, thanks for joining us.
I can't wait to see future episodes, Steve.